There is a quiet, unspoken system most people use to decide whether someone is ambitious, and it has very little to do with what that person actually wants out of life. Ambition is judged almost entirely by appearance. What time you wake up, how busy you seem, whether you grind through boring tasks without resistance, and how often you look stressed or exhausted. If those signals are missing, people rarely stop to investigate further. They simply assume you don't want much. If you don't wake up early, they assume you lack discipline. If you don't power through menial work, they assume you lack work ethic. If you don't look busy, they assume you lack ambition. These conclusions form quickly, and while they are rarely said directly, they are felt immediately. That is where the real conflict begins. Picture a weekday morning where one person is awake at 5:30 a.m., already checking emails and rushing through a workout they don't enjoy. Their calendar is full, their schedule is tight, and by 9 a.m. they already look tired. Everyone around them sees drive and discipline. Now picture someone else waking up 2 hours later. They make coffee, sit quietly, and think through the day before opening their laptop. They are not rushing, they are not stressed, and they are not broadcasting effort. From the outside, this second person looks unmotivated, maybe even complacent. But internally, that second person is not confused about their future. They think about it often, and they know exactly what they want long term. They simply do not believe that waking up early for its own sake automatically creates progress. They are not avoiding effort. They are avoiding effort that does not change anything. From the outside, that choice looks like laziness. Internally, it feels like refusing to perform struggle just to prove seriousness. The same dynamic shows up with small, unglamorous tasks. At work, imagine two employees who want to move up. The first says yes to everything. They attend every meeting, even the ones with no agenda. They respond to messages immediately and stay late whenever it is suggested. Their days are full of motion, and everyone agrees they are hardworking. The second employee behaves very differently. They do not jump at every request. They decline meetings that repeat the same conversations. When a new task appears, they pause and ask whether it actually changes an outcome or simply adds motion to the day. To coworkers, that pause looks like avoidance. It can look like a lack of initiative, or worse, a lack of ambition. To the person experiencing it, it feels like resisting wasted effort and protecting limited mental energy. Now fast forward a year. The first employee is still busy. In fact, they're busier than ever. They have become the default person for coordination, follow-ups, and cleanup. Their workload has increased, but their role has not fundamentally changed. They are valuable because they are available. The second employee is quieter, but their position has shifted. They spent less time maintaining motion and more time developing leverage. Their work affects outcomes instead of processes. Their progress looks sudden to others, even though it was slow and invisible at the time. Ambition is expected to look uncomfortable. It is supposed to show up early, stay late, and tolerate boredom without protest. If someone is not visibly uncomfortable, people assume they're coasting. This model works reasonably well for people who are energized by repetition and routine, but it breaks down completely for people who are focused on outcomes rather than rituals. You can see the same contrast outside of work. Consider two people who both say they want to feel healthier over the long term. The first person charges in with intensity and very little reflection. They wake up early, change their diet all at once, and commit to demanding workouts immediately. They choose a plan that feels punishing because discomfort reassures them that they're being serious, without asking whether this pace is something they can realistically maintain for years. Their effort is visible and exhausting. The second person moves much quieter. They do not wake up early or follow a strict program. Instead, they think about what they could still do during stressful weeks or busy seasons, and they make small changes that would not require constant self-control, like cutting out sugary drinks, walking most days, or going to bed earlier when they feel run down. The first person looks disciplined while the second looks lazy. 5 years later, the first person has started and stopped multiple health plans, with progress that comes in short bursts and disappears just as quickly. The second person never looked impressive, but they never had to restart. Their habits stuck because they were chosen for sustainability, not intensity. The difference was not desire, it was tolerance for systems that demanded struggle to prove commitment. Money gives another clear example. One person manages their finances with constant attention. They categorize every purchase, check their bank balance multiple times a day, and regularly tweak budgets when something goes off plan. They feel responsible, but also anxious because money occupies a lot of mental space. Their effort is visible, consistent, and quietly exhausting. The other person rarely checks their accounts in detail. They do not log purchases, track categories, or review apps daily. From the outside, this looks careless, even lazy, because there is no visible system or routine. But instead of micromanaging spending, they focus on leverage. They negotiate their salary, choose roles with clear growth paths, and avoid increasing their lifestyle every time their income rises. Over time, their net worth grows faster, even though their daily behavior never looked disciplined. In both cases, the desire for stability is real. What's missing in the second case is the visible performance of struggle, and that absence is what creates the lazy label. For people who think this way, thinking itself is not a weakness. It is often the reason they avoid wasting years of energy on paths that look productive but lead nowhere. Before they act, they naturally try to understand what the effort will actually produce. They test ideas mentally and look for leverage before committing themselves fully. This kind of thinking protects them from charging into routines, jobs, or projects that would eventually drain them. You see this when someone hesitates before starting something, not because they don't care, but because they care enough to ask whether the work is worth doing in the first place. They are trying to make sure the effort will still make sense months or years later. That instinct is not laziness, it is selectivity. This kind of thinking explains why people who operate this way often appear to move slowly at first, and then make progress that looks sudden to everyone else. While coworkers are taking on extra tasks, attending every meeting, and staying busy just to stay visible, this person is quietly watching which roles lead to more responsibility without more control. They notice who keeps getting asked to do more coordination work and who gets handed higher impact problems. They wait. Then, when they commit, it's usually to a path that already has leverage built into it. You see the same pattern with side projects. While others start immediately, experimenting publicly and refining through trial and error, this person spends months deciding which project is worth the effort at all. When they finally begin, they move faster because they're not learning from scratch. From the outside, it looks like nothing was happening and then everything happened at once. Internally, the movement was there all along, just not in a way that produced daily proof. Thinking this way also makes people unusually good at avoiding burnout. They notice early when effort starts to feel unsustainable, so they adjust before exhaustion sets in, instead of pushing through until they break. They are less likely to trap themselves in routines they quietly resent, and more likely to build patterns they can actually live with over time, which is why their ambition often lasts longer, even if it looks quieter day to day. This mindset also gives them a different way of measuring progress. Instead of judging success by how busy they look or how hard they seem to be working, they pay attention to direction. They care about whether their actions are moving them towards freedom, more stability, or more control over their time, which keeps them from getting stuck in roles that reward visibility rather than real progress. When this kind of thinking is working well, it doesn't replace action, it shapes it. Action becomes more deliberate, more sustainable, and more aligned with what actually matters. The movement may be less frequent, but when it happens, it tends to count. So if you've ever thought of yourself as ambitious but lazy, that label isn't always accurate. In many cases, it simply means you're trying to get ahead in a way that looks different from what people expect.